Hello everyone, it's Jason2890 here, coming back with another Pokemon Go video. It's been quite a while since I've put out a Pokemon Go video, but I've gotten quite a few requests on a specific team of mine, and people have been asking me how to play it, so I decided, okay, I have some footage, I'll actually put together a video. So this is my ABA Steel, Registeel, Medicham, Bastiodon line that I've been using for the last 3 or 4 seasons, but it's really seen a lot of positive usage over specifically the last 2 seasons since the Wing Attack buff. With the meta shifting toward Lantern, Noctowl, Trevenant, Medicham lines in some sort of iteration, this team surprisingly has a lot of play against basically every combination of those Pokemon. And I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. But before we get into the battles, I want to just give a brief synopsis on how this team works and why it's so successful. Because a lot of people would see this team and think, oh, why don't you run Medicham in the front and then have 2 steals in the back? But the problem with that is that everybody runs ABB lines in Great League. So a lot of people will run a team where they have 2 counters to steal in the back, for example. So a lot of battles are already decided based on team composition just by running a team like this, because most often you are not going to flip switch whenever the person knows that you're probably going to have another steal in the back, so they'll know that switch is important. And a Pokemon as polarizing as Bastiodon needs to be in a positive matchup. So if the opponent's smart enough, they'll know to maintain switch advantage, and then they'll align like a fighter in the back to Bastiodon or a Galarian Stunfisk or something that easily destroys Bastiodon. So the thing about this team is it's a bit unpredictable because people don't know what you have in the back with the Registeel lead, and they're not expecting a second steal in the back whenever you sacrifice the Registeel lead. So basically what we're going to do with this team, whenever you get a bad lead, is just sack Registeel. There'll be some scenarios where we end up shielding, but Registeel in Open Great League is the king of the zero shield. There are so many scenarios where Registeel wins zero shields against Pokemon that it has no business winning against, like an Obstagoon, for instance, because Focus Blast is a one-shot with lock-on damage and all that. Or even against Medicham, going straight Zap Cannon, if you get the debuff on it, and depending on IVs, you could throw Zap Cannon then a Focus Blast before they get to 2 Psychics to KO if they're not running Up or Dynamic Punch. So the goal of that is to basically just either grab a shield advantage out of the lead or take out their lead and then align Medicham and Bastiodon appropriately against their back line. Because oftentimes people will build a team designed to either lure out a Medicham or lure out a Bastiodon with their safe swap because their other Pokemon's weak to that. So by weakening their front Pokemon with the Registeel, you end up getting into a scenario where either Medicham or Bastiodon can sweep the back line, or you might get into a scenario where you can get proper alignment to have them in the matchups that they need to be put into. Because there are a lot of scenarios where Bastiodon doesn't really fit into any matchups because their entire team is pretty good against it, but you have to just put it in the least bad matchup. So without further ado, we'll get into the battles here. I'll show you how to play out of some bad leads, and then I believe later in the video we have some scenarios where we get some good leads. But even good leads are tricky to handle with this team because you get into scenarios where you need to figure out what the opponent has in the back and whether or not you need to preserve Medicham. Because when an opponent safe swaps a Galarian Stunfisks, for example, or Registeel, it's usually to lure out a possible fighter. So you might need Medicham to handle their back Pokemon as well, because you might have something else with a fighting weakness, maybe Obstagoon, that you wouldn't want Registeel or Bastiodon to align. So there'll be a lot of scenarios where we run Power Up Punch specifically to stall the switch timer, and that way we can pivot out of Medicham after winning against their counter swap on their lead, and then swap back into Registeel, and then lure out their back Pokemon so Medicham can handle that. And then Bastiodon's usually good against the first Pokemon if Registeel won the lead. So without further ado, we'll get into it. These battles were all from earlier this season. They're all with me in the veteran range because this was just the first 2 weeks of the season. So this is before most people were hitting expert, and definitely before anyone was hitting legend. So just so you know, that's why our rating is what it is right now. Currently, we hit legend since this video, but all this footage is from earlier this season. So let's get into it. So we got first battle against Vice Arson, or Wise Arson. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but we have a Galarian Stunfisk lead. And Galarian Stunfisk is a bit of a tricky situation. You get to Focus Blast before they get to their first Earthquake. But what I usually try to do is match shields if I think they're going to be throwing an Earthquake. Because you want to land a Focus Blast, because if they do preserve Stunfisk, you don't want a Bastiodon to lure into it. Now, I make a mistake here. I shield up with a Rock Slide. They ended up baiting. I actually have specific IVs on this Registeel that let me tank an Earthquake and still get to a move. So I could have tanked that and still gotten off the Focus Blast. Right here, we have no shields left. But we survived the Earthquake because I have very high defense on my Registeel. It's Trade IV Registeel. It's like rank 400 something, but it has high defense. We do lose the 2-shield there, but the Stunfisk is so low now that oftentimes a Stunfisk a Galarian Stunfisk is possibly weak in the back. Usually they're double strong to Medicham because you want to have an answer to Medicham. But oftentimes it also means they run flyers in the back, in which case Bastiodon usually has a lot of play. So we're going to get into it in just a moment here. But I just want to go just give a brief explanation there as to why we're double shielding that. And also, it is helpful, I will say, if you're running Registeel, to run a defense-weighted one, because you hit a Mudshot breakpoint specifically in the Galarian Stunfisk matchup, which could allow you to survive or to force them to throw multiple moves. Because if you don't hit the Mudshot breakpoint, you get into scenarios where a Galarian Stunfisk can land an Earthquake and then just farm Registeel down and come out with a lot of energy. But this forces them to at least throw an Earthquake, usually double Earthquake, because against most matchups, I actually survive an Earthquake plus a Rock Slide before I get the 2 Focus Blasts. So it comes in handy. I will say that. I usually don't put too much stock into IVs, but for Registeel versus Galarian Stunfisk specifically in Great League, I do recommend high defense, high HP if you have it. Defense, more of a priority. But anyway, we counter down their Stunfisk. They actually give up swap right there, and they get us in alignment with a Dragonair, Shadow Dragonair. They will die to 1 Psychic. We survive a Body Slam, so we will farm up a little bit more just in case we need to get a little bit of extra energy, but we'll throw the Psychic. This will KO. And I presume whatever they have in the back will be weak to Bastiodon. And yes, they're bringing a Noctowl. This game is essentially over. The Galarian Stunfisk is pretty much energy dry. And we're just going to farm this Noctowl down. Yeah, they bring in Stunfisk. We throw this Flamethrower at it just to make sure. I don't know if we'd be able to smack it down before it got to a move. Although it looks like we probably would have. And then we ended up winning that battle. So that was a scenario where we lost the lead, still ended up winning the battle. And even in that last battle, if they had not given up Switch to preserve their G-Fisk, Bastiodon would have been able to sweep the Dragonair and the Noctowl. So it wasn't the fact that our opponent gave up Switch that won us the battle. It was the fact that Bastiodon, their entire backline was soft weak to Bastiodon, especially in the Zero Shield. Shadow Dragonair doesn't really stand a chance. It can't tank a Stone Edge, and it won't get to multiple Aqua Tails, which don't even hurt that much anyway, even though it is Shadow. It's because Bastiodon is such a beast. Anyway, next battle here, we have a Registeel into Medicham. So this is what I was just talking about earlier. You actually can win the Zero Shield here. Depending on Medicham IVs, sometimes they survive Zap Cannon plus Focus Blast. And I try not to throw on CMP here. Throws a Psychic. We let it go. They do have to go for 2 Psychics here if we get the attack drop, and we do. And you get to the second, you get to Focus Blast before they get to the second Psychic, so I am going to throw this. They actually survive with 1 HP. I think I'm going to shield this, yes. Because I believe that alignment's more important here. They have a Charizard, which is fantastic that we decided to fight for Switch there because we aligned Bastiodon there, and then they have their own Bastiodon. So we get Medicham on Bastiodon, we get Bastiodon on Charizard, and that's an easy game with alignment. Another battle here, Registeel into another Medicham. So same scenario as last time. We're going to play out the lead here. We're going to tank. You generally don't shield unless you know you can flip Switch here. We're going to throw the Zap Cannon. If you don't get the attack drop, ooh, okay. This is a scenario where I usually do shield because I like getting the damage on Medicham more. So I am going to shield this here. All right, Ice Punch. Yeah, if you don't get the attack drop, they could actually throw an Ice Punch there. They double shield the lead, so this is kind of tricky. We have Medicham. Obviously scared of our Registeel here, of our team. So I have a Lickitung here. I'm going to farm up, and then I'm going to bring in Bastiodon. Even though Medicham has a positive matchup against Lickitung, you are taking super effective damage from the Licks. And Bastiodon, you know, the Licks are doing neutral damage. It resists the Body Slams. The Power Whips are only neutral, but it's not that strong of a move since it's not Stab. So we're going to try to farm this down as much as possible. We're going to build up to close to 100 energy. We're only 2 Smackdowns away from another fast move here. Or another charge move here. I might swap back into Medicham here if Switch Timer's up. And they do. So we're going to go throw this Flamethrower to stall the Switch Timer here and then get out of that. And we do have our Psychic ready. We're going to throw our Psychic into this Medicham. It does take it out. And what do they have in the back? Yeah, they have a Walrein. Alright, and we're going to just throw this Psychic. This should KO the Shadow Walrein. If not, then yeah, we could easily just farm it down. And then we take out the Lickitung. So that was a good game. They used the Lickitung to try to lure out the Medicham, or to lure out a better fighter counter. But that was kind of a tricky scenario. I think that they knew what my team was, because they did play it as well as they could have. They needed to double shield their Medicham, because their Medicham was kind of their win condition there. But it was also pretty tricky to play against ABA Steel teams. So as you can see from there, even though they played it probably as best as they could have there. It's very difficult to handle that. And Bastiodon's good against Shadow Wall Rain as well, especially when you're up a shield. Because you KO with a Stone Edge, you could shield an Earthquake. We have a Registeel into a Lantern. So this is more of a neutral lead. Depending on how I play this, a lot of people will go for Thunderbolt first because they don't expect Registeel to shield, and I usually do shield the first one if they're at Thunderbolt energy. Very, very rarely you'll get a scenario where they throw a Surf after building up the Thunderbolt energy. Mostly people just go straight for Thunderbolt. And I usually let the second one go, especially if I get the defense drop. You win the 0 shield easily against Lantern, but if you shield Thunderbolts, you could actually flip the 1 shield and the 2 shield as well, depending on attack drops. We're going to try to get this out of the way. They have an Obstagoon here. I throw a Zap Cannon here just to try to get a defense drop, or an attack drop rather, and because they almost always shield, because they need to fear the Focus Blast. Now we get Medicham on this, and they have a Noctowl in the back. We're going to build up to a Power-Up Punch just for the fun of it. That way we could have a move ready for Obstagoon to start ramping up our counter damage. So now we have this Noctowl into Bastiodon situation. You could just smack down this entire thing. They need to throw like 4 or 5 Shadow Balls in order to take you out. Yeah, see, they landed 2 Shadow Balls, and even with the wing attack damage, we're just hitting yellow when they get to the 3rd Shadow Ball. So we're going to farm this all the way down, come out with energy for the Obstagoon. They threw a move right away. If it's a cross chop, I believe we survive from here, which is crazy. Yeah, we do. Pretty nuts. So we're going to throw the Stone Edge, swap into our Medicham, Power Up Punch. We're going to let this go. It's obviously a Night Slash. But then we're going to be able to easily just counter this down. We still have a shield. All right. Another positive win with a Lantern lead. All right, we have another Registeel into Lantern. Yeah, typically I would play with the 0 shield in most scenarios, but Lantern's one of those scenarios where a lot of times you need alignment in their back line because they could have something like Trevenant, and you kind of need Bastiodon on Trevenant. Sometimes people run double Dark or double Ghost teams in the back. We'll see how this plays out. We had our shield. I usually don't invest 2 shields into this matchup. It's usually not necessary. We're going to throw the second Zap Cannon here. 2 Zap Cannons take out Lantern. We got that out of the way. And they bring in a Dragonair next. Focus Blast does a ton of damage, but they almost always shield here, so I'm just going to go straight for Zap Cannon. And we survive the Aqua Tail. Registeel's a beast. We're going to throw this. They actually no shield that, which is a little surprising. But anyway. And they have an Alolan Ninetales in the back. We get Bastiodon on that. Medicham could easily counter down the Dragonair from that range. We have a battle against Trainer, 1, 2, 3, and some other numbers. They're usually very high up on the leaderboard as well. Yeah, I got another Lantern lead here. If I recall correctly, this I believe is the Lantern double Ghost line, which is very tricky to play out of because you kind of need Bastiodon to handle both of their back Pokemon. So if they preserve Lantern, which is what they do here, ends up being a bit of a tricky scenario. Now, this is where team reading comes into play. Because typically I would bring in Bastiodon here and farm it down, but I have a feeling I'll need Bastiodon for their back Pokemon, so I'm actually going to sacrifice Registeel here, and then against all Common Instinct, I'm going to bring in Medicham versus their Sableye. Because Medicham with energy can threaten Trevenant if they do have a Trevenant in the back. Yeah. And I'm actually going to go for a cheeky pup bait here, because they typically shield, and I do get a shield here. And are we going to shield this? Yes, we are going to shield it. Yeah, we're going to shield it and throw the Psychic to grab the second shield or do massive damage. We do grab the second shield. Oh man, this is a tough battle. Shadow Ball would do more damage than Surf. And it's very likely that they should throw Shadow Ball here. We're in a tricky scenario here where we need to come out with enough energy to outpace Trevenant to a move, but we still need to take out this Lantern. So I'm going to farm up as much energy as I can. 1, 2, 3. They're about to hit another Surf, so I throw the Stone Edge here. We are 3 Smackdowns away, and I believe they're 5 Shadow Claws away from a move. Yep, so we just get to the Flamethrower right before they get to a Seed Bomb. We're able to take out the Trevenant, so whew, tough battle. Very, very difficult to play out of that team, but it's definitely possible, as you can see there. Registeel into Frostlass. This is positive for Registeel. Ooh, okay. This is something I haven't talked about yet. So Gliscor is a huge core breaker for this entire team. Nothing wants to see this, especially since you're not running Ice Punch on Medicham. Ice Punch can threaten Gliscor since it's double weak to Ice, but I mean the other Pokemon we have on this team, they resist. It resists all these moves, you know. I mean, I guess Flamethrower does neutral, and I guess Stone Edge does neutral, and Smackdown as well because you have the ground and the flying canceling each other out. But you don't want to take an Earthquake on on Bastiodon as well. So typically, whenever someone safe swaps a Gliscor or Gliscor, I don't know how it's pronounced, but I typically just stay in with Registeel and just spam out Zap Cannons and hope for debuffs and hope to correctly shield Earthquakes because you actually outpace to Zap Cannons before they get to Earthquakes. I believe the counts are 9 wing attacks for the first Earthquake and then 8 for the next, like 7 or something, or maybe not 7, but you know, it's something like that. So you outpace because it takes 8 wing attacks for you to get to Zap Cannon, and they need 9 for the first one. We're gonna throw some Zap Cannons here. We're gonna try to correctly shield Earthquakes. As you can see, the Zap Cannon, even though it's resisted, does about half damage. We do shield an Earthquake correctly here, which is nice. And we get to the second one before they get to... We throw it before they get to another Earthquake. They do shield it. We got another attack fall. We actually survive an Earthquake now, but I think they're probably not going to bait. So I do shield a Night Slash, which is bad. Luckily, I didn't get a boost. They're at an Earthquake. We survived the Earthquake. Okay, we're going to go for this. We're really hoping that they let it go. They do let it go. They're probably anticipating that a Frostlass with a shield advantage and an energy advantage is going to be able to sweep the team, but they don't realize we have Bastiodon in the back. So we get our Bastiodon on Frostlass, and they bring in their last Pokemon, which is a double. We're going to pup once just so we can farm this down a little easier. They're probably running Body Slam Payback. We have no shields left, so they're probably going to... Yeah, probably Body Slam and then a Payback. Because a Payback will do more raw damage, and they won't be able to get to 3 Body Slams, so that makes sense. We're going to throw a Psychic here to either grab their last shield or do massive damage since it's boosted and let it go. They're going to farm us down, come out with a lot of energy, but since Bastiodon is such a tank and these Shadow Balls are only neutral, we end up being able to comfortably tank 2, possibly even 3, because the Powder Snow damage is pretty negligible. And they can't be at back-to-back Shadow Balls. They need at least 2 more Powder Snows to get to their next one, regardless of whether they're at 100 energy. So we just throw the Stone Edge here. We easily take out this Frostlass, no problem. Yeah, pretty solid. I do have a few more battles here. What do we have? Okay, we have a Noctowl lead. So this is what I want to talk about. Whenever you get a desirable lead like this, teams that have a Noctowl lead typically have 2 answers to steals in the back. So as long as we get alignment, even if it's something that we get 2 shield through on their safe swap with Registeel, that's fine if we have to put shields on that, because then we could just align Bastiodon with Noctowl, and that's not a big deal. And even Medicham with a shield advantage and energy against Noctowl isn't that bad. So depending on what they bring in, we might have to counter swap Medicham, but we might end up later preserving it because we don't need alignment once we take out their safe swap, because we could get Registeel on their third Pokemon, lure out their third Pokemon, and then take it out with Medicham, and then have Bastiodon for the Noctowl still, since we have 2 answers to Noctowl. Which is another reason why this team's so great in this meta, is so many people are running Noctowl, and if they run it in the lead, we catch it in the lead with a steal. If they run it in the back, a lot of times with alignment, we can get Bastiodon on it, so it ends up being pretty nice. But anyway, let's see how this plays out. We'll see if they safe swap and see how we play it. Okay, so they bring in a G-Fisk. We answered immediately with Medicham, and our goal here is to pup. We want to stall Switch Timer because we don't want Medicham to be locked into that Noctowl matchup, because we probably need Medicham for whatever their third Pokemon is. Most people go for Earthquake right away here, knowing that we can tank it, which is why I shield it. And I throw a second Power Up Punch right when they get to what would be their second Earthquake. So if they want to get this off, they need to shield. They don't. We are boosted here. I'm going for another pup bait because the Psychic will actually put them into farm down range, so they're likely to shield. They do not shield, but I end up catching a Shadow Ball and having a little bit of energy left on Medicham. I catch a Shadow Ball on Registeel. They have their own Medicham in the back. So this is why we need to preserve Medicham. Registeel doesn't do awful against Medicham. We could at least debuff it, possibly do a decent amount of damage. I might shield this to get to another move. Nope, I don't. Okay. What am I going to do here? Okay. I do shield it. Hopefully we get a shield here. We did not get a shield. It's pretty rough. We're going to throw the Psychic here. This will probably grab the shield. This is going to work out. Yeah, this grabs the shield. Ooh, I bring in Bastiodon right away. I anticipated that they would simul swap there, and they did not. But they're almost in Flamethrower range. This might actually be okay. tricky. We gotta hope that this flamethrower kills him. It does not. But they bring in Noctowl. Okay. We can tank a Shadow Ball from here, surprisingly. Bastiodon's such a tank. Okay. Yeah, so I try to undercharge this. Maybe get some energy so they can't farm down Bastiodon. Unfortunately. Okay. Phew. We're able to counter that down before they got to an Ice Punch or Psychic. That was a very close battle. So you see, like, even though we won lead there, it was a pretty terrifying battle. It was a tricky battle where we needed to preserve Medicham. We needed to anticipate that they have something that answers Registeel and Bastiodon on the back, so we needed to preserve our Medicham to have any shot at that. So we have an Azu lead here. If they're running Ice Beam Play Rough, which a lot of Azus are in the lead, then Bastiodon does fine against it. Registeel is obviously really good against this, but we'll see. Medicham's not even that bad against Azu. It's kind of neutral-ish. We'll see how this plays out. They're probably going to swap out right away. Yeah, so G-Fisk. Same scenario as before. We're going to pup. We're going to try to shield up an Earthquake, and we're going to try to preserve Medicham after this, because we might need Medicham for whatever they have in the back. Shield the Earthquake correctly. We're going to throw this on CMP at their second Earthquake, so if they want to get off the second Earthquake, they need to shield this, which some people do. Some people will shield the pup just to get off the Earthquake. All right, we're going to throw a kick here. And we're going to pivot back into Registeel. They have a Toxicroak in the back, so this is precisely why we needed to maintain... we need to keep our Medicham alive. Ooh, we did not get an attack drop, which makes this a little tricky. I think we survive a Mud Bomb. No, we don't. Okay. We need to correctly shield a Sludge Bomb here. Okay, we do. And we need them to shield this bait. A lot of things need to go our way for us to win this. But if they don't shield it, we might be able to just go straight pup and then just get a bunch of counter damage here. Do we survive a Sludge Bomb? I think we do. No, we don't. Okay. Okay. I don't know if we're going to win this battle. Okay. Yeah. So, like, we kind of knew the right play. We had to preserve Medicham. Maybe I should have just no-shielded the first Sludge Bomb and just hope that they baited. But, yeah, that was the last battle that we had there. So, yeah, the team's obviously not unbeatable, but there are a lot of scenarios where you need to preserve Medicham, so that's why I want to throw that last one in there. I did mostly show wins there because I wanted to show how to properly play this team, but it is very versatile. Definitely give it a try if you have these Pokemon built, especially if you have decent IVs on the Regi. Definitely want high defense there. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Good luck on your Legend pushes if you aren't at Legend yet in this point in the season. And we have 3 weeks of Open Great League coming up next, or with the potential to play Open Great League. Because we have, I think, depending when I get this video up, we have like 1 more day left of Spring Cup, and then we have all 3 leagues available, and then we have Great League coming up. And I think that there's Great League and Master League Premier the following week, which I'll probably be playing Master League Premier since it's one of my favorites. But anyway, best of luck. I'll probably get into streaming more on Twitch. Definitely give me a follow on Twitch if you are not. I don't stream Pokemon Go that much, especially recently, but follow me there and subscribe on YouTube. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.